Hi everyone, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of Forward Thinking. You've got Charlie and Chrissy here from CS2 Marketing. So today we've got a pretty interesting topic that we've been thinking about quite a lot over the last couple of weeks, and it's all around what is called the sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, that's like a tongue twister, I think. Sunk cost fallacy. Say that 10 times fast. I think it's...
Yeah, maybe not for this podcast.
I think
for afterwards.
It might not be safe for work after a while.
That's pretty funny. Okay, moving on. So what is the sunk cost fallacy? This is where individuals, I'm reading a definition here if this sounds boring, but individuals commit the sunk cost fallacy when they continue a behavior or endeavor as a result of a previously invested resources. So how that relates to marketing operations is
just
in
marketing.
twofold.
Marketing, right?
Marketing
Not
or
just
marketing
ops.
operations.
Yeah.
It's twofold. Really around campaigns and tech.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times you'll have a tool, people like to call it shelf-ware, where it's sitting on the shelf and you're not using it, but you're spending money on it. And you want to keep it because you've spent money on it already. And that is, you're completely falling into the trap of the sunk cost fallacy. You sunk money into it. And the fallacy is that you think you might still be able to get value out of it if you continue using it. And the same thing from a campaign point of view. If you're running a campaign or a channel or any kind of initiative within marketing, you've put money, you've put time, you've put resources into it. And it may not be giving you the results that you need, but because you've already invested in it, you're sticking with it.
Yeah, and I think this can be a source of stress for some people as well. I think I compare it to, weirdly, we have this like really fancy massager that we spend a lot of money on, and I'll look at it and I'm like, I need to use that.
Oh, the Theragun thing?
Yeah, the Hypervolt.
I thought you were talking about a real massage.
Oh, no.
Like a person.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
I was like, where did you get that?
The Hypervolt, and
Yeah.
I think I tried it like once, and it made my skin itch, and I was thinking, okay, I'll give it another shot. Okay, every time I look at it, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start using that. You know, I should use that. It's expensive. It's fancy. It'll make my muscles feel better. And then it just kind of sits there, and I keep thinking in the back of my head every time I walk by it, I kind of feel a little bit like inside of me hurts. And that's just a small investment.
And that's not a subscription. Right?
No, a small investment as well, and that's just a personal thing. I think everyone can think about those in their daily lives, but for those of us in marketing, especially marketing also with tech, and then for marketers for their campaigns, we find that where we spend the most amount of money or where we put a lot of budget, we'll just try our hardest to make things work, where in the end it might make sense to really just rip it out. And I think right now when budgets are being slashed, or we could really free up some budget because we haven't been given any more, this is a good exercise to run through. So to not get caught in that sunk cost fallacy position.
And I actually had a conversation with a client the other day about this, and there's a tool, I won't name names, but you know, it's in the tens of thousands yearly, and but they're desperate for extra MOPS headcount. And I said, well, I mean, I know that getting rid of this tool isn't going to be freeing up all of the money for a MOPS headcount, but it's going to get you somewhat of the way there, and give you an ability to maybe have that conversation, right? Because you've freed up a little bit of budget in exchange for trying to like free up a little bit more to get that headcount.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the important things with the sunk cost fallacy is that it really, you know what's in that category, right? And that constant trying to like keep on, you know, having it in the back of your mind, and it's taking up that kind of overhead in your energy, but you know that it's a sunk cost. You know it's not providing value, and it's like genuinely does impact your happiness and well-being and the productivity of your team.
Yeah, and in some times you maybe don't know because you're coming into the organization and you're just given a tech stack, and you're like, 3 of these things do the same thing, you know, and you're wondering, or that you're like hearing from a sales team now that it really didn't get the due diligence that it properly needed, or it's not working. Okay, like why is it not working? So we wanted to talk through the questions or an exercise that you can go through when trying to decide whether you continue to put resources into something, or keep some initiative going, or keep a piece of tech versus not. And so do you want to kick it off, Charlie?
Sure. So there's just some general questions to ask yourself. So the first one is, once you've identified a tool or a campaign that isn't really giving you the ROI or the value, is the first thing is, like, okay, you're trying to figure out, should I scrap this or not, right? So first, develop that list of everything that kind of doesn't seem right in terms of the balance of value to cost and effort. But then ask yourself, have I implemented this properly? Right? Is this tool that an attribution tool, or a data orchestration tool, or whatever it is, did I put the time into actually implementing this properly? Did I train the team properly? Have I just done all of the things I needed to do to get the value out of this? Is it kind of on me?
Mm-hmm.
And then once you've asked,
or did your predecessor? Because like I said, you might
or
be
their CS team,
mm-hmm.
Kind of as a group of people.
Right.
Yeah, good point. So then the next question to ask, if the answer to that is no, then can I even put in more effort, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can, then maybe try,
mm-hmm.
right? Unless it's just a categorical no, that you should just scrap this thing. But if you think you can put in more effort, and you can, maybe take a few steps back to take a lot of steps forward, then try it,
mm-hmm.
Maybe before scrapping it. But if the answer is, I literally don't have the time, I can't see myself doing this in the next few quarters, renewals coming up, then I think you've got your answer.
Totally. And I think some of the things that, when we think about this with a client, it's kind of taking some of the emotion out of it as well. I think a lot of the times we even find like, oh, I'm using this tool because my CMO is best friends with my wife's sisters, like whoever, there's like relationships behind some of these big decisions. And that is so stressful for a marketing ops person who's just like trying to make this tech work. And we really need to stop doing those backdoor deals, or stop doing those deals that are really a favor, because no one wins in the end. But, take some of that emotion out. Like, people will understand if you make the case for why it's hurting the business, or why maybe it's impacting your team. You can part ways with it. And also, make sure you're not making too quick of a decision with this. So some things actually do truly take time, especially when it comes to campaigns. With tech, it's pretty clear. Like, if you did your perfect implementation, can I get an expert to review this? That might even be better to have an expert then come in if you do have those additional resources, to then come see if you did everything you could to launch it. It's just not the right fit for you. But for campaigns, it might need to be, on the sales side, was there enough follow-up? Do we have enough time to actually see results from this? Pipeline revenue in some enterprises takes a long time to see those results. But if it doesn't even match your go-to-market strategy, you probably don't even have enough time to even see that pipeline get created, and you might need to scrap it too. So really, when you're making these decisions, take all of the data, but know that sometimes things take time. Sometimes it's pretty clear, and then make the best decision, and really think about the costs, the extra costs, not just the thing, how much it took to buy it or to implement it, but what are we losing for trying to put all this effort into the tool? Or is it impacting revenue because we're not able to focus on any other things? And so I think you have a few kind of categories that you could compare, kind of, to get a score for how well the campaign or tech is doing for you.
Yeah, so I call it MOPS, and it's
MOPS-C.
No, I've decided it's definitely gonna be MOPS. So
but it's like MOPS-C.
No. The fourth one's S now. I literally decided while you were talking.
Okay.
So this is kind of part of a prioritization framework we're trying to work on for marketing operations people. It's mainly focused on tools. So the first one, M, is metrics and data / data.
Yeah.
So is this tool really providing insight through some metric or reporting or analytics for your CMO, for the team that they're really using, and it's really valuable?
Yeah, so that's
is it helping with data? So that's the first one. Like, is it helping with data cleanliness, quality? Like, is it helping those reports really work? So the second one in MOPS is O, so that's operational stability. So this is why it's a bit more focused for marketing operations stuff as opposed to campaigns. But is this platform, tool, whatever it is it foundational to the stability of your whole stack, right?
Yeah.
So is it really helping, your marketing automation platform, CRM, your integrations, whatever it is, your data quality? Is it really foundational, and is it keeping everything stable? If it is, then you don't want to take it out because it's going to cause a lot of other downstream effects.
Yeah. So we have metrics, operational stability, and then the third one is pipeline and revenue impact. So this is a key one, and kind of I was saying,
that's the P.
Yeah, that's the P. Sometimes it will take time to build that pipeline and revenue impact, and you might even find that this is where some things take time, like ABM campaigns, and you might need to even then reiterate on those campaigns. We have a great listen with Shanal Narayan from Everstring talking about that. It was one of our previous episodes to check out. But you really want to see, what's our impact on our pipeline and revenue if we rip this out? Would we be able to actually invest that into something else that's driving more pipeline revenue? And will we save our resources?
It's kind of like, if you've got a drift bot and people are engaging with the drift bot, scheduling meetings and they're turning into pipeline, try and really understand like how that tech is impacting pipeline and revenue, of course. A lot of people don't do that unless the tool is just kind of explicitly linked, but everything is kind of linked, right? And by the way, we forgot to mention at the beginning, you would give a score in each of these aspects, kind of a 1 to 10. So like there could be something that isn't really tying much to pipeline and revenue, but it has like really great operational stability. So then obviously the score would weight out across all 4. The final one is selling experience for S. This includes CX and obviously your sales process, things like that. Now, is it helping you sell better through a better experience for the customers, better experience for your sales team? Obviously, that does impact pipeline and revenue, but is it really helping you connect with your customers, sell better, have scale your approach to engaging with your customers through your sales engagement, and all of the different aspects within that?
And I think also brand, because as we've talked about before, branding activities can lower your cost of acquisition, but also just be a better selling experience for your team because people already know who you are. They understand your brand a bit more. They have that kind of sense of, wanting to be part of that brand. And so I think for some campaigns where people don't have a direct tie to pipeline and revenue just because they can't see it, this is a good thing to also keep in mind. Like, does it make our selling experience better? Brand experience? Does it, can we find that implied intent that maybe you're not seeing in the pipeline revenue impact? And getting those details from the sales team, maybe interviewing them to see if that's been part of, impacting their deals and their selling cycle is good to do too.
Yeah. So once you've given a score 1 to 10 on all those aspects, you've asked yourself the previous questions, like, did I even do this properly? Were we ready? There's one other question that I just want to add is trying to get an expert opinion. Chrissy touched on it. But a lot of our clients come to us and they ask us these kind of questions, and we come at it without that background and that emotion tied to the tool, right?
Yeah.
Unless we were part of the selection process as well. But if it's there before we got there, we can be really objective and say, do you know what? You're just not using this. Like, yes, you might be using it for this tiny use case here, but that's just not enough to pay for it.
Or they're just not ready to.
Right. 100%. That happens all the time.
Yeah, and I think that is a sad case in some where, and
getting
especially
getting
ahead of yourself. And then also, if there's been big, massive changes in your company and your org, you may have seemed like you're going to be ready, and then now you're just really not. And I think that's also places where people are right now, where maybe your team's been cut in half. And yes, you were ready to embark on, some big change with or strategy for a campaign or this big tool to help you do attribution. And you got everyone, on the same page with it. Those people are gone. It's really hard to then make the case to keep investing in it. So,
and that's probably the hardest one to deal with, because you think the reason why I have to get rid of this is because we're no longer ready. It's a hard thing to admit to yourself. And actually thinking about that's probably one of the biggest reasons why people fall into the sunk cost fallacy trap, and they think maybe we'll be ready soon, we'll be ready next quarter, we're ready next quarter, and then before you know it, it's been a year or longer, and you just still haven't got the use out of it.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you can't one day. You can return to it, but for now, it's just not.
Yeah, so then once you've done this exercise, and then you have some tools or programs or channels, whatever it is that is on this list, that it has, low numbers across the MOPS prioritization that I went through. You don't think you're ready to put in more. Maybe you got some advice from someone. They also think it's not ready. Think what else you can do with that money. Because I think a lot of people think that you kind of forget that you have a budget, everything takes away from that budget, and it's not, you don't have like this unlimited budget. So if you're paying 50 grand for an attribution tool but you're not using it, that's 50 grand that you could be putting in something way more impactful. So if you were probably getting a tiny bit of value and you're holding on to that sunk cost fallacy, but then you realize, okay, you have to realize that's $50,000 that you could put into something else and maybe get a ton of value. So it's undeniable that you're getting value out of it, right?
Yeah.
I think people forget that aspect. They just think, oh, well, if we want to do this other thing, we'll find the budget for that, right?
Totally. And I think that is key as well, because a lot of the times marketers especially, we're afraid, oh no, my budget might get taken away from me then, because if my CMO sees like, oh, I'm not using this 70K anymore, then my budget's going to be like taken away by 70K. It's like, well, but if you have the case to say, okay, I'm not going to be spending this money, but I do want to use it for XYZ, and this is why, have that at your disposal when you are having that conversation, when someone tries to just take that line item away from you and give it to someone else, because that's a key thing. You want to hold on to the budget if you can. Yeah.
And I think from our point of view, you think of marketing and marketing operations, people, process, technology and data. The one thing that you can always get the most bang for your buck from investing into is people. So even if you took away the fanciest tools in your stack and you just had some really amazing people to execute within kind of a smaller set of marketing technologies, you're going to do better than just like trying to just layer on more and more tools and complicated aspects for one person to deal with. So if you can always benefit from having more people, is what I'm trying to say. So if you have a few tools that are sitting there that you don't really need, then build that case to get headcount. And then if they say no, then say, okay, well, what happens if I can reduce the budget by this, by removing these tools?
Totally. So, Marie Kondo your tech stack and your campaigns. Figure out what's really providing you that high prioritization score, aka giving you joy. So we hope that was useful, I think, for marketers and marketing ops, and we will see you on the next episode of Forward Thinking.
This is Charlie. So if you liked what you heard, hit like on the platform where you watch this. Also, leave a review. Honestly, we'd really, really appreciate it. You can also subscribe where you listen to your podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or even YouTube. And make sure you subscribe to our newsletter, which is packed full of exclusive content, updates for events or courses that we might be doing, all designed to elevate your marketing operations and B2B strategy. See you next time on Forward, and Forward is up.